Okay, good morning. I guess we have enough for a quorum and we're ready to go, and I don't have a gavel to calm everybody down. So thank you for coming.
Just
We've got a lot of topics this morning. We can have a good quick meeting or we can have a feather meeting. I already sent that message to Cassie. She can't be. Is there a motion to accept the minutes from March 29th? Moved by John, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Jason.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. How are you?
Good. What do we got?
First up is I have special guest Matt Fuller, which is the Sewer District's local counsel, to discuss our progress with the proposed Washington County Sewer District number 1 consolidation efforts. Matt, can you hear us?
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for the time here today. I should be unmuted, right? Yeah. Okay. So a couple of years ago, I think it actually might have even been before COVID. We were I think Joe and I were at Public Works and talked about the work that needs to be done up in Sewer District number 1 up by the airport, just for everybody's reference, the industrial park up by Warren County Airport. We've got some pretty significant I&I infiltration, groundwater, stormwater that gets into that system and has really driven up the operations and maintenance, the O&M costs for the pump station that we ultimately connect to that flows through Queensbury and on to the Glens Falls sewer plant. Joe has been working for years now on a project to slip line all of that old infrastructure within the old Washington County Sewer District number 1, which will cut down drastically that I&I. And then hopefully, obviously, the plan is to reduce the O&M charges to those users because of the cost and savings to electric and things like that. So up in that area, we've got Washington County Sewer District number 1, and you all probably recall north of Casey Road, probably 20 years ago or so now, a Kingsbury Sewer District number 1 was formed. There's a few users in there. I forget it was what the RWS facility is called now, but there's a couple of users up there north of Casey, and there's probably a dozen or so lots that are up there total. The IDA owns a bunch. I don't know if Dave O'Brien's there, but that is a kind of a maintenance concern. The reality is the Washington County Sewer District guys end up going up there, if there's any sort of service calls for Washington County or really even the Kingsbury part up there. So what we're proposing to do, if you're harking back a couple of years ago, is Washington County Sewer District number 1 would be extended to the north north of Casey to include a portion of what is right now the Kingsbury Sewer District number 1, and Kingsbury Sewer District number 1 would be dissolved. So the town board would dissolve Kingsbury 1, deed and convey the infrastructure pipes essentially to Washington County Sewer District number 1, and Washington County Sewer District number 1 would encompass the portion of that district. And you'll note that I said portion. The reason for that is when we got into this process, again, back a couple of years ago, Joe reached out to the IDA and the town of Kingsbury, because Kingsbury has been involved too, just to float the question that, hey, if we're going to do this, we had heard about issues with wetlands and things like that up on the northern part of what the IDA owns up in the Kingsbury district, and heard some grumblings that maybe the boundaries might need to be amended a bit, that basically some of those lots that previously were thought to be developable maybe are not because of wetlands and things like that. So we did that. The IDA responded back, again, I'm thinking we're before COVID, Joe can correct me, 2019 or 2020, somewhere in there. And they also responded late last year, I think it was in the fall, with another slight amendment to the map based on some wetlands flagging and things like that they had done. Long story short is We now have a draft map plan and report, which is, for those of you who haven't dealt with districts before, kind of the initial formation document for a district. What we're doing is we're using the map plan and report, which is also required to extend a water or sewer district. So what we've done is we had Wright Pierce, on behalf of the district, draft a map plan and report that will extend Washington County Sewer District number 1 into a portion of Kingsbury 1, which again, we've worked with the IDA. It'll encompass the existing users that are there and the few developable lots that are still left in that area. And it'll all be under the umbrella of Washington County Sewer District number 1. What that in turn is allowing us to do is to adjust the rate structure for the users in Washington County Sewer District number 1, the extended district number 1, so that we can turn around and really secure funding and go out to bid on this slip lining project again to get that I&I and stormwater and things out of our sanitary sewer system up there. Procedurally, there's some public hearings and obviously SEQR, State Environmental Quality Review Act, that we will go through. I did draft just kind of a bullet pointed or outline of how we get from point A to point B. There's, of course, coordination with the town of Queensbury, which we have talked to last year. We approached them. A couple of things that we've got to clean up with our regulations. That is actually some hangover stuff from the deals that were negotiated about 20 years ago that never got done, that Queensbury politely pointed out to us. So Joe, Jason, and I are working on that. We'll be back to the Board of Supervisors with some upgrades to our local laws and regulations that we'll propose to the board. But for this process here, again, we'll coordinate with Glens Falls. Warren County also connects. So if you know, west of Airport Road, County Line Road, there are a bunch of users on the Warren County side that Warren County has a sewer district that connects to our Washington County district. So we will be coordinating with them as well. Joe, Jason, and I talked yesterday. We'll get a meeting on the docket here with the Warren County folks and make sure nobody's surprised at what we're doing. They know we floated it out again a year or so ago, so nobody's surprised at what we're doing. And we'll be coordinating with Kingsbury, obviously, because the SEQR and the public hearing process and things like that. The town of Kingsbury goes through a dissolution process for their district, and Washington County will go through an extension process. So both boards have to have public hearings to get this done. But what I'll do is I'll put together all the documents, the drafts, resolutions, notices, things like that, package it up, run it through approval of the commissioners, and send it to up to you all. I'm assuming through Public Works and on to the full board. Obviously, I'll coordinate with Roger, get him all the documents and any changes or drafts and things like that he wants to see. So that's pretty much the update here for today. I've got a pretty good outline of all the various things that need to do. It looks like a ton more than it actually is. It's all just procedural. We don't see a lot of impediments unless some taxpayer objects and decides that the hopeful cost savings we're looking at and O&M and things like that are objectionable. But I guess I'll throw it to the floor with questions or anything anybody's got for me, anything I can clarify or that I didn't hit.
Yeah. Matt, Darrell Wilson, thank you for that. What's your end state time look like? I mean, when do you expect to get through the procedural hurdles?
Yeah, good question. I knew I didn't check off some box here. That's one of them. I think all things being equal, we'd like to have this wrapped up this fiscal and budget year so that you'll be able to use the EDU structure, which I'll talk about in a second, to do your billing starting in 23. So I would envision this is probably a 4 or 5 month process to get from point A to point B. But we would like to have it wrapped up again so that come 1/1/23, the EDU structure and the billing are just all done. the EDU structure is the equivalent dwelling unit, just the term of how we bill the units up there. One of the things that Joe and the district have struggled with is how we bill our users doesn't mirror how we get billed from Queensberry. So Queensberry sends us one bill, and then Joe and the team and I know Al's office go through and issue bills based on how our structure is set up. What we're doing is kind of streamlining the two processes, how Queensberry bills us and how we then turn around and bill out our users. Again, to make that a little more user-friendly on the billing side and also on the user side. And Dave knows this, it's no secret, but right now the IDA lots based on the old structure don't really pay any fees because they're vacant, they're not being used. And what, from an economic development standpoint, kind of sidebar to the reason we're doing this, we obviously, from the district standpoint, aren't necessarily focused directly on the economic development, but a lot of lots have remained vacant because the EDU structure doesn't incur any costs on them, but they're getting the benefit of the billing. So in the draft map planner report is an EDU structure, again, similar to how we're getting billed from Queensberry, that will have everybody's gonna have to pay the debt, obviously, is the short of it, right? So even the lots that are being benefited, that may not be using the sewer right now, they're still benefited in that district. And right now, what you see is if you actually go through and look at the bills, that we will get a draft of the NPR, the map planner report up to you, but you'll see that a lot of the users are paying quite high bills, again, because of the I&I and electricity costs with those pump station, but the vacant lots are not paying anything. They're getting a ride on the backs of the improved lots that are carrying that weight. So defer to Joe and Jason, the engineers, that the policy decision of what's fair comes from the commissioners and the board of supervisors. And I think Joe's and Jason's proposal here of what they've gone through in the map planning report is to kind of balance what's fair, right? This I&I project is going to benefit all of the lots, and therefore the benefit and the burden is going to be shared by everybody.
Matt, I just wanted to clarify, the existing rate structure for sewer district number 1 is not an EDU based structure.
That's right, it's metered.
We are Queensberry's rate structure to Washington County sewer district number 1 is an EDU based structure. Ours is not based on that.
Right.
Ours is complicated. I'm not going to go into it because I get confused just talking about it still after 12 years. So
but it's not a metered,
it's based on water meter and square footage of building.
Exactly. So it's a hybrid of it is an EDU structure. It just also factors in usage.
Right. And so we're just going to streamline that, make it apples to apples or as close to apples as we can, and make it more equitable for all of the property owners and users moving forward.
That was a roundabout discussion to say this year to answer the question.
So, Matt, I also want to say that because of the issues with I&I, there's also limitation how many users could be added up there.
Correct.
So if that I&I is resolved, on both sides of the road, both on the Warren County side and Washington County side, it could lead to prospective new development coming in there who may have a higher need for water and sewer than up there. But right now there's a limit on what can be done. That's
a good point, David. And it has been we'll say a polite bone of contention with Queensberry because the agreements that were drafted, actually, when I was an associate way back, we worked on the agreements with Queensberry, Glens Falls, Washington County, Kingsbury, IDA, and they didn't factor in essentially upcharging for I&I, because if you think about it, our I&I, we are using capacity in the Glens Falls plant that is owned by Kingsbury, the Washington County Sewer District number 1, and Queensberry. So Dave, to your point, pulling this I&I off essentially increases capacity. We're using capacity that's being wasted right now because it's just clean water. It's storm water going into the system, which is a no-no for any sewer system. So yeah, Dave, good point. It'll free up some capacity. You get a user up there that wants to use it. We're not creating more capacity. We're just getting back capacity that's being occupied right now.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Dana.
Joe, you might remember, didn't a few years ago, we changed the water meter billing? It no longer goes to the town of Kingsbury. It now goes to the sewer district.
We bill, yes, based on usage, but the Kingsbury Sewer District 1 users are not charged the portion of billing related to Queensbury's benefit use tax to Washington County Sewer 1.
Right.
So we do the billing or essentially for part of the O&M to the Kingsbury Sewer 1 users.
That's correct. And Danny, you might also be referring to the Washington County Sewer District number 2. We did a separate deal a year or so ago. It was during COVID that Joe and the team have picked up some of it. They haven't picked it up. We're just now billing for the work that they've been doing for a long, long time. And it's a whole side discussion of how it got there, but we're kind of cleaning all these things up now.
Okay, any more questions? Thank you. Next, Jason.
Thanks,
Yes,
Matt.
Mr. Chairman. Item number 2 on the
Yep.
agenda is discussion of really informational only potential or possibility for a request for short-term interfund borrowing, what I call short-term interfund borrowing from the county of approximately $2.5 million. And that number specifically comes from the work that we've started at the capital project here at the plant in March on good faith by contract and working with the plan of finance under the state revolving fund program. That estimated that $2.5 million comes from work starting in mid-March to July 1st. Why we're discussing this is because we have not closed short-term financing under the state revolving fund program, my previous employer. Working with them, and I know Joe and the team here prior to my arrival had worked with the state revolving folks, Environmental Facilities Corporation, on submitting their financing applications, their secret documentation, all their legal documentation, including bond counsel and bond resolutions by board to close that financing originally scheduled for February 2022. The district was notified sometime in mid-April, early April, I should say, and said that we had a question or a follow-up meeting with us, wanted to meet with us, talk about some engineering, which we had, and they wanted to know final cost estimates for the project. And I started asking specific questions on that budget and what exactly they needed from my team, from EFC. And explaining to them that they had this information back in September of 2021. Cost estimates have not changed. Exhibits have not changed. Environmental review has not changed. Board resolutions have not changed. Why is there a delay in the closing? We explained that information. I followed up with a summary of our discussion of that meeting in early April. Spoke to the president and vice president of EFC, Mike Hale, on what are the reasons we're seeing a delay in this closing. And there was no specifics given other than I said that your teams need to get together with legal, finance, and the other divisions, engineering, to move this forward as quickly as possible under good faith. We made the good faith and signed contracts, working with Wendell, working with the Schultz team, moving, mobilizing, building roads, starting shoring, and the unit processes at the grit chamber. All that work has started without any finance from the SRF code. So in parallel, and that's for informational, that's why I'm bringing up the supervisors, is how soon can we get to a closing? Really, that's the bottom line, and working with the EFC team. So ultimately, over the last month or so, they committed by on 4/12. They have three committees that the SRF program has to go through before final approval. One of them is loan committee. I know the project went direct loan committee on 4/12. The next step is EFC board on 5/12 for board approval. The third is 5/18. It goes to the public authority board for final approval. Within 5 to 10 days after that, I'll have my money. So by June 1st is the latest that I see at this point in time, we would have a closing with a state revolving fund. But since all the work the county has done over the last year and the delay that I saw, I wanted to bring it to the board public works committee's attention that there could be a potential short-term interfund borrowing that I may need if that does not close by June 1st. So it's really informational, working with Al, his team, working with the supervisors, understanding where we're at with delays, with the plan of financing. We're already, the engineers here on the ground at site, working through right now with some bedrock that we ran into, some ledge, where our new grit tank will be placed. So that's given me a little bit of time from an engineering standpoint to review the structural integrity of that, review plan sets for the shoring, 4 to 6 weeks in delay for that work in engineering, for that work to continue. So wanted to, bring it to your attention, see if you have any concerns, let you know that I'm working with Al, talk to my board of commissioners about this, work with Joe, letting everybody know all my intentions and working on this over the last few weeks in terms of just really pressuring the state agency to get us to the finish line and get us to closing as quickly as possible. And I understand, right? The limited resources, all agencies, state agencies, institutional knowledge is not the same. It's changing every day. And I explained that to the vice president at EFC. But I said to him that we need to move this forward as quickly as possible because the good faith that we put forward here, it's in the public eye that we need to be assured that this is going to move forward and close as quickly as possible.
Just a little note to that sad story. We did not know yes or no, or we did not know yes or no whether we had actually closed in February or not. The prior closing that we had, which was a prior short-term borrowing that went long-term, closed, and we got it went from short-term to long-term, and it closed, and we weren't notified. We were not told of that. We heard essentially in a sidebar discussion with EFC. So we did not realize that it hadn't closed. We were told it would close in February. We assumed that everything was on task and on schedule. So we assumed. That's why we moved ahead in good faith, as Jason says. We moved ahead with the construction and started the project. And then we were absolutely surprised in April when we started receiving requests for information related to this new short-term borrowing. So it's kind of a perfect storm, and I'll let you define what type of storm it was. It's unfortunate, but we're in the situation, and I'm nervous about whether or not we're actually going to have monies available June 1st. So that's why we wanted to come to the supervisors now with this and get this interfund borrowing at least in motion, so that we would have some cash flow to continue this project.
And I think it's important to know, supervisors, is that this is nothing that the county did on our end in terms of documentation submittals, because as I explained to Mike Hale, who is the vice president, in a long discussion that this information the county has submitted a long time ago.
Many times.
And prior to September of 21. I was working on this project before I left the state to go to the county. I knew where the project files were. I knew exactly what information was in there. There should have been no reason why this project should have never closed in February. We moved it. I finished the 01, like Joe explained, that 00 phase, that original phase of work that Joe, we closed in December. That was all lined up prior to me coming to the county. So, you know, they're going to blame it on limited resources, changing who's leading the project at the state level. But that's not my concern. Now I'm in the field and on the ground and making good faith and moving forward with contractors, doing what we're supposed to be doing at the county level. And the state fell short. So I wanted you to be sure that's exactly.
Supervisors have questions or comments on it. Go ahead, Dean.
Al, you know what I'm gonna ask.
I'm gonna ask the same thing.
If somebody flushes a toilet in Kingsbury, will somebody in Hartford have to pay for it with this inter-fund borrowing? That ties up county money. You have administration costs in your department that costs people in Hartford for people in Kingsbury flushing their toilet. Is that right?
Yes, the difference with the sewer district is I get to charge them interest. They don't get interest-free loans from us. They have to pay for them.
Money.
See?
No more flushing toilets.
My question is, are you setting a precedence for individual projects? I mean, I just got through meeting with the state on a bridge grant that we're getting for $1 million, which the county is going to own the bridge when we get done. And they're telling us the reimbursement may be really slow. And for our little town to front the money, should I come to the county and ask for a loan, you know, instead of going through a bank program?
And unfortunately, you couldn't. The sewer district being a Park County agency can.
Okay.
That's the difference. We've loaned to them before. The only difference with the sewer district is we get to charge them interest. My concern for Jason would be if he's had some work done down there. If he's got invoices from the vendor, I don't know that you want to wait. You might, if the board's got an appetite for this, you might want to get this in place so you can get some payments made. And it wouldn't be upfront money. It would be a line of credit not to exceed. So if you sent 100,000 in, we would only loan 100,000. It wouldn't be 2 million upfront. It would be like a line of credit that we would draw down.
Yeah, we currently have under our Wendell contract, Mary's with me too in my office. We currently have approximately about 250,000 in invoices from Wendell. So for everyone's benefit, this is a performance contract, right? So Wendell has a direct contract with Schultz. There's two contracts. You have the performance contract, right? And that performance contract is directly with Schultz and Wendell. The second contract under this capital project is a direct contract with the county and Schultz. That's for the concrete work. So what we've seen so far in terms of invoices is the only one from Wendell, and that's under the performance contract.
There's going to be something coming from Schultz as well.
Under contract one, which is the concrete, we have not seen that. And I've been working, so let the Board of Supervisors know too, that I've been working with the VP at Schultz to explain exactly what we're going through in the plan of finance, what their requests are. They're working with us, but also they need to work with me too, because on their end, they have material cost increases that have gone up $100,000. So there's there's discussions going back and forth, and there's no, the VP has been very welcoming in terms of working with me on finalizing this plan of finance. So there's no been direct requests from Schultz or Wendell is saying we need payment now, because we're meeting weekly, sometimes twice a week in discussions of construction, but also plan of finance. So everybody is working with one another in terms of development of what we need from our current ledge work here at the plant, what we're running into from engineering and shoring, the delays that they're seeing with their engineer, So timing seems not to be of a question in terms of when they're going to be receiving payments, because they need something from the county too, in terms of material and cost increases, and share of those cost increases.
I don't see any harm in moving it forward, though. Move
No.
this inter-county funding forward, make it happen, open the line of credit, pay the invoices, make people as happy as you can make them in this situation. That's just, to me, that's what we do. Who knows? This is a big project. Who knows what's going to happen 6 months from now with materials and this and that and the other thing. It just get them paid. Don't give them anything to be upset about.
John, did you have a question?
When the money comes from the state, you get reimbursed at that time?
Yes, sir. Plus interest, plus interest.
Yes, the district would be out the interest. I don't think we can use the interest of that interfund borrowing through the revolving fund, which is fine.
The interest will be a district cost, yes.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Yep.
Sue, you had a question?
Yeah, and this is for consolidating sewer district number 1 into Warren County area.
No, this is the long-term control plan of the plant. This is the cement work that's begun in March.
So it's solely Washington County.
This is the plan down in Fort Edwards. It's the.
This is the
sewer.
work from phase 3 and 4 of the long-term control plan, which started over 10 years ago.
Daryl, you-
So I have a question and kind of a statement. I appreciate all the background and conversation,
Most certainly.
autopsy work on the financing. So if we need, it's more of a procedural point or a question, I guess. So we need a committee you need the committee to give you.
So this committee would either approve or not approve a motion to move it to finance. Finance would send a resolution to the full board to authorize an interfund.
So we don't see a cash flow problem right now, but your concern is making sure the invoices get paid and we don't jeopardize the timeline on the project, correct?
Correct.
So when,
In parallel with the state.
yeah,
revolving.
thanks. Stepwise, finance is next, I guess.
so you're gonna move,
I make a motion to move this to finance. Second.
second by Tim again.
What's the interest rate?
The interest rate moves with my market. So they have to pay the highest rate that I'm receiving, which is on my investments. Currently, it's 0.55%.
This is up to how much?
So if I get an increase tomorrow by my investment, they pay that increased rate. It's a moving.
You know, 0.5%. What a deal.
It's good, yes.
Is there a cap?
Is there a cap on it?
How much money?
He's suggesting the 2.5 that's the contract.
And again, supervisors, the
It won't be
2.5
that.
comes from mobilization in March to July 1st, right? So I wanted to go out as far as I could in terms of where I believe ESC would close by then. And if I look at our numbers from March or mid-March through July 1st, it's about $2.5 million.
The state tells me June, I hear July, so.
So the motion then is to move a
Open line.
2.5, up to
Not to exceed.
2.5 million line of credit with interest to finance.
Yes, sir.
And we have the seconds. Any more questions? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Herbert.
Next item.
Thank you, supervisors. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 3 is, again, informational only, working with Mr. O'Brien and his team, Beth Gillis, and submittal of a congressional member item application for the Fort Edward Urban Tissue 1A project of approximately $9.1 million. So that's what we're seeking for that project. Many of you know, I worked on it with the state for many years with Joe back in 2005 and 2006. Looking at those numbers, we had originally estimated 4 or 5 years ago a cost of around $7 million, right, for that economic development project. Running numbers in different calculations, that that cost today to build is approximately $13 million. And that's the storm water separation, that's drinking water replacement, that's SSO removal, CSO removal within that McRae, I believe some call it Little Canada area.
And new sanitary sewer.
New sanitary, correct.
Any questions on this item, Dana?
Is that the dewatering facility building that you're talking
No,
about?
this
Where
is-
is Fort Edward 1A?
McRae Street, Irving,
Irving Tissue, okay. We've been talking about that for years and years.
yes,
Yeah, that's been on, yes, Supervisor, that's been on the our capital project doc for a long time. What I didn't discuss there is, we have $1 million currently in Empire State Development for that in the form of grant. We also have a state member item of $1 million. We have $1 million from DEC's Water Quality Improvement Project Grant Program. And we also have $1 million from the Water Infrastructure Act program, which is part of EFC and the State Revolving Fund. We closed, not loan with the State Revolving Fund, but we closed grant to secure that $1 million under that program. So I looked at different exclusions. If we lost, because the timing of this, as you know, Supervisors, has gone on for a period of time. And if there at any point there's an economic component, Irving or another participant didn't want to move forward with it, or looking at our project, because I want to move that infrastructure to the roadway for access, maintenance. That's the whole idea, elimination of the SSO, CSO. If one of those, and I took that into consideration in the calculation of $13 million, eliminating, say, the Empire State Development, that gives us that movement within that ask under that congressional member item at 13,
Okay.
at 9.1 million. But information only. Keep our fingers crossed.
I guess we're set for item number 4, Ethan.
Item number 4 is the engineering planning grant. This is a request just to transfer or carry forward from 2021 budget to 2022.
Is there a motion to move that to finance? Moved by John, second by Daryl. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Supervisors. Now, item number 5. I talked about this when I came to the county in terms of looking at engineers, looking at environmental science students to work here at the plant, looking at ACC, HVCC. I wanted to your thoughts in terms of what our policies are, what our procedures are, and maybe it's for that 2023 budget as I look at that in long-term planning. But I think it's important to bring that younger staff in, that younger generation, engineering and science as part of the department moving forward over the years. So just wanted more informational too for the supervisors, but that's what I'm thinking that I'd like to do if I can. My first step is to contact ACC, contact HVCC or other technical schools, let them know what I'm thinking, but I wanted to hear from you if there's, those regulations or policies or what I need to do at the county level before I reach out to those institutions, because it would be a great benefit to the district in development. I can just use one example is asset management, right? Identifying our resources, our assets here for capital improvement, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. If most of you have gotten to know me over the last 3 or 4 months, I don't like to be reactive. I want to be proactive. And doing that gives me the ability to be more proactive in our assets and evaluating those assets so we can look out 5, 10 years. And this assistance with this, with a student internship co-op or what we're calling it, will provide that navigation moving forward.
Jason, so I was just getting it from both sides. There is an intern policy at the county level. You've checked into that, I hope.
We got that from Debbie. Thank you, Debbie.
Debbie sent that to me this morning.
Okay, and the other question that was asked is, is there a pay level? What are you looking at on that? Just out of curiosity.
I would be looking at a labor rate, in terms of, that's, when I went through the engineering program through the state of New York, it was at a base labor rate. It's a learning, right? It's a learning experience for that individual. They have to be looking at it from that standpoint. They're not looking at the finance, and it may be a requirement, right? Some schools require different services or co-ops to graduate. So the pay scale or to be competitive, and that's something maybe we'll have to look at, Mr. Chairman, in terms of how competitive we can be to bring in students, our students into the field. So we'll need to look at that closer.
Dana.
I'm sure our intern policy speaks about compensation. I'm not necessarily looking at being competitive for interns. Matt, do we have to make a title for this in personnel, civil service?
This is for 23. This is to open the gate for 23 budget talks.
But yeah, we'd have to create something.
There's a whole process.
No doubt, yeah, all the way through, and there'd have to be a number assigned, a grade assigned.
I'm pretty sure that the district, I know in the past, we've had what we call summer labor. So maybe we do have to create a title, maybe we don't. I can't remember off the top of my head if that's still in the organizational pattern or not, but if it's not, then we do what we have to do to push that back in.
Right, through future conversations with personnel officer, she can determine, but for a temporary position, it's not an issue calling it a labor and just, okay, but it's for next year to clarify, right?
Yeah.
Yes, we're looking at 2023, but we want to reach out. That's why I'm presenting to the supervisors in terms of, what are those steps, but I want to contact those academias, those institutions, field them out, what they're, getting those 2-year technical school students into the program. Because as you know, it's from an operational, it's across the state to get young operators, which we know we have an aging infrastructure workforce. Bringing those young students in is just so important at this level.
Brian, did you have a question?
Oh, I got a couple things. Anyway, first of all, I think we have to be competitive because I don't think anybody's knocking down the door to go to work for sewer district.
I agree, Brian. Well said.
I think Mr. Brilling is leaving pretty shortly here. So I don't know that the budget has to swell, it just might not contract. So there will be some money freed up along those lines. And my bigger question would be, is this something we're going to try to do year after year after year? Or because I don't see this as a one-time deal. I think you want a kind of a revolving door of your interns in to come up with your people in the future is my guess. I'll let you address that.
I agree, Supervisor. It's something that I want to see, on an annual basis, year after year, like you're indicating. I think, like I said, it's important to refill that, your staffing and looking at your staffing patterns, but aging staffing, and I just think it's a priority. It should be a priority, and definitely a review for 2023.
Harold?
Yeah, just a recommendation, doing this in another line of work that I do, it is year over year, establish a relationship with an educational institution, and especially if it goes towards credits, towards a degree, and make that a reoccurring year over year basis, so that if anything, you help contribute to growth of the engineering industry, and possibly set yourself up to be able to hire one of these newer engineers coming into the field when the time is needed. So it does help a lot of folks. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for the support.
I have one.
Go ahead, Dana.
This bothers me a little bit because one, I don't think it's the role of county government to help grow the engineering industry. It's not our job. And is there a way, if we have an intern, that we are paying an intern, that we can, and this is probably not the right word, that we can indenture that intern so that so that if this person graduates, he will come and be employed at the county, not just a revolving door, intern, then they go to Syracuse, they go somewhere else. Is there any kind, and I said indenture is probably the wrong word, but maybe Matt has a better word, that they would tie them for future employment to the county. Because
Jason, can I address that?
Move forward, Joe.
It certainly is not the county's obligation to bump up the engineering career field. What it is the county's problem, because you can't find people to become operators. You can't find people to become sewer maintainers. I'm not even concerned about the engineering field. There's more than enough engineers in the world right now. There may not be enough environmental engineers or civil engineers at any given point in time, and that's fine. What we really truly need is to just get young people to understand that this is a viable career path. You don't have to be an engineer. You don't have to be a microbiologist. You can make a living doing this. You can make a good living doing this. And you learn things day to day to day to day. It's interesting if you're wired that way. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to, and this isn't a Washington County problem. This is the water quality professionals problem. And now post-COVID, or sort of kind of post-COVID, this is systemic across all markets. You can't find people to work. So you have to get somewhat creative. This isn't what we're proposing and asking to do here, isn't nuclear science. It's not unique. Everybody's doing this. This is what we have to do. And quite honestly, ACC is a great spot to tap into. BOCES is also something viable to tap into. I've been involved in this with the New York Water Environment Association for the last 20 years, trying to increase the number of young people coming into this career field. It's not the county's issue. It's the county's problem that we're trying to help solve. And that's right. People will come to us and they'll intern for us and they'll find an interest somehow, some way in some career path related to water quality, hopefully. And they'll move on to the next guy who's going to pay them a little bit more. That's okay. Because if we can get more people doing what we're talking about doing, then that means somebody's going to come to us from somebody else. It's a revolving thing. It's not, I spent 10 years in one place, 10 years in another place, and 12 years in my final place before I retired. That's how it is. That's life now. So, mindset, folks, mindset. Big picture.
I could just add to, it's just supervisors it's not just the engineering, right? It's the science. So it's for students in the environmental sciences, the science fields. It's sparking their interest in having that opportunity to be involved in the day-to-day operations. And I think it goes a long ways beyond the textbooks. I know for me at RIT, and it was a requirement as co-op before you graduated from engineering school, that you did X amount of semesters or tri-semesters before you graduate. Actually, it was a year of work that I needed. So just that introduction goes a long ways. And you hope to be able to retain those individuals here, especially where we see that from an operational standpoint with our aging staff. But again, it could be the other sciences too. I want to open that door a little bit and give that opportunity to have our facilities, you know, it's just like with the regulatory agencies, having that ability to young engineers to be part of it.
Jason, Melissa just wants to do a quick recap on.
So Jason, what you'll want to do then is submit your request with your budget for next year.
Okay.
Adding those positions to it, have a conversation with the personnel officer as far as positions that you'll be adding to your department. And then we can continue discussion at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else on your list?
That's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Deb just left. I'll have to answer.
Morning. I was wondering if that's what I was.
Are you gonna get anything for some of these frame rotted?
We'll find out. So first up is our auction list. Deb's gonna share screen, I think. We need to add one vehicle to this. It's a 2009 Ford Focus. The rocker panels are rotted out. It has 88,741 miles on it. I apologize. It doesn't have the make or model on these. The first one is a Focus. This from Nuco. The code one is a Trailblazer, and the rest of them are Focuses.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Dan.
Why are we selling cars because rocker panels are rotted out? Normal people go to a body shop, you can get that fixed rather than selling the car.
So Jamie has determined that these are not fixable because we've fixed some rocker panels in the past and these are not savable.
They make cars now where you can't fix rocker panels.
Brian, you went out.
Yeah,
and said
we
today.
went through this a couple of years ago when COVID first hit, and we looked at more. I said, let's replace them. And it turned out it was more money than the car was worth. It just wasn't worth it. There's nothing left to salvage.
Was it in the 09?
No, this was that
This car is in this car. in
Oh,
09.
it's an 09 anyway, yeah. There's nothing left to salvage. That's the problem. I haven't seen this particular car, but I know the ones we looked at, I think that we looked at 6, 3 we salvaged and 3 we couldn't. That's kind of bad.
It's 23 years old.
No,
13.
it's math, man. It's math.
It's just math.
John.
I round up.
I mean, we need to check the question.
Stick around for the budget.
I think they want to know some years.
Yeah, right.
Oh, so I'm sorry. So the year is at the beginning. So this one, first one is an 08, and that's the car number 759. The next one's an 07, the third one's an 08, fourth one's an 07, and the last one's an 08.
Yeah,
Yeah,
last salt.
I think we got their life. Useful life.
Well, to tell you the truth, in my opinion, some undercoating on some of these, like the 08, if I owned the vehicle, I had an 04 that I got 220,000. We've got vehicles here that don't even have 50,000 on them, and maybe I guess we're looking at different processes of undercoating in the future.
Yeah, so in around 2016, 17, before I started, they started undercoating with, it was a rubberized undercoating. And they found recently that kind of wears off, so they're not happy with that. So this year, we're starting with a rust inhibitor, and that will be able to be touched up yearly, whereas the rubberized isn't.
Dana?
Is this still crushed stone over there where we park these cars?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, would it be worth our while to pay that?
We tried to do that before to stop this. That's when we voted down the paving. Was this perfect thing.
So pay where the carpool is.
Well, a lot of these cars are public health.
When Dan came
Are not parked
It was also
in carpool, correct?
Yeah, I've
All
heard
of
about
these cars are, well, the last one is parked in carpool. Newco is parked over at the school now. Code is over at the school now, and public health is over. But I think it's paved, isn't it paved in front of the, that,
Public
where
health.
public health is?
But where they used to park it, public health, was it paved? 'Cause-
Oh, I don't know, where did they use
By the
it?
guardrail, I don't think it was.
Okay, I'm asking that.
So if you park on unpaved surface, it rots.
Russ, right.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's only
Brian's
because,
demonstrative behavior over here. There is a philosophy behind it, the way they parking across town.
Go ahead, Dana.
I raise my hand when I want to speak.
I can still ask some questions. You jumped in here.
I'm sorry, are you finished? Parking on crushed stone makes the car rust a lot longer and faster if you do not wash the salt from the undercarriage from the previous winter. It's more humid. But I think if we were to pressure wash the undercarriage, get rid of the salt, a lot cheaper than paving the parking lot, because the salt is still gonna be in the car.
Maybe we should build a car wash.
We have one.
Schools started to do that for their bus garages, car washes, they have the exact same problem.
Man,
I guess when I took a while of this, when you got an 07 or 08 with those few miles on them, that average was like 4,000 or 5,000 miles a year. Do we really need to buy those then? Probably not. So we should keep that in mind as we move forward. When we replace vehicles, do we really need to do that if we're now only using it 4,000 or 5,000 miles a year? Just a thought.
That makes
and
more
we had
sense.
that discussion, Deb and I, on, should we be rotating some cars? If you get a car sitting there, it's not getting used, rotated to where it gets used more, and, so that needs to be.
They still rust. Yep.
A motion to move these vehicles to auction.
Thank you. There's a second by the whole committee here. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I hope we get something.
Yeah.
My car's an 02, with rusty rocker.
So the next up is our principal account clerk is retiring in June, and we would like to sort of restructure the office. So Deb has another screen sharing, I hope that this picture makes it a little easier to explain.
It's kind of one of the cascading effects, just like we have.
Very technical chart we have here.
I couldn't fancy it up.
I like your cost saving measure.
So
Two full-time, part-time.
So we have currently got 3 full-time in the office, a principal account clerk, a senior account clerk, and an account clerk. The proposed would be 2 full-time and 1 part-time. The senior account clerk would take the principal account clerk's position, but add a title of bookkeeper. The account clerk would move into the senior account clerk's position, and the principal account clerk would be a part-time position, 2 days a week.
Moving it to personnel.
Yes, sir.
Second it, Tim. Any questions? Dana?
Daryl made a comment that this is probably save money, but not necessarily. It depends upon the grades. For example, if a senior account clerk becomes a bookkeeper, I bet that's a higher grade.
We looked at that. It isn't gonna be cost saving because Danielle verified that it will be cost.
Yeah, we calculated it out to be, for this year, $20,212 in cost savings.
Well, okay, thank you.
And I was the one who asked her to do this because she explained to me over the phone. And I was lost. So I appreciate the flow chart.
Brian?
So we're gonna get as much work done, more work done, or less work done when we go from 3 full-time to 2 full-time, 1 part-time?
So what we have found is that the upgrade in the Chronos system has made that position much less work. So we're hoping to try this. If it doesn't work, I'll be asking them for a half a person.
We might be able to come up with that.
One-handed typist.
It'll come as a full one, but.
We just want to remember this conversation when if that happens. But I appreciate,
We're gonna try this. I hope it works.
I appreciate the effort of trying. Thank you.
All in favor of moving it to personnel?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Next, we have, I knew I was get their names, wrote it down somewhere. The pit map. So we own a pit up in Cordian on Tripoli Road, and I was gonna say Edelman's, but that's not their name. Well, there's other owners of pits, including Kingsbury Town and this other pit, and they own a pit that borders 149, and they have land on the other side of our pit, and they've asked if they could have a short-term access through our pit to get over to theirs to pull logs out. I talked to Roger, and Roger said to ask you guys.
Well, I would have asked Roger, is there a liability issue?
Well, we're gonna make them require insurance, their insurance thing. And then we're gonna limit the amount of time that they can do this. It's not like a never ending thing. So here's the map. The blue is what the county owns. The red is the path that they want to take to get from one property to the other. What we use for the most part, we never go, let's see. So where that little octagon is or hexagon is with the one in it, if you go up above that, we don't use that area of the pit. That's where the gravel is, and we don't mine out of our pit anymore. To the right of where it says Washington County 17.1, we use where it says county, we have storage there, and the sheriff uses land, and we use other parts of, we use all of that to the right of that.
Do you see any issue with this stuff?
I didn't see any issue with it.
So putting the rails on it, parameters for insurance and accessibility.
Yep. And they would have to fill out a highway work permit, which they've already done, and then we give our.
Is there already a roadway there?
What's that?
It doesn't really look like there's a roadway there where the red line.
That is roughly the snowmobile path. So there is sort of a road there. We have a rule that they can't cut anything without anything larger than 4 inches if they need to cut anything without our permission on that path. And they have to call the sheriff to ask if the sheriff is going to be down there before they use it on a daily basis.
We're gonna make sure that they get the snowmobile path cleaned up so we don't have a snowmobiler get injured.
It does say that in that it has to be returned to better or similar condition. And we have to approve it. That's another one of the conditions.
You're gonna move to,
I'll make a motion to allow them to enter into the agreement. Or allow them to enter into
for a second. Brian,
When we're all done, are we gonna have a problem with the snowmobilers and all that if this road's wrecked or they
We
put
just-
it back?
we just answered that, but you were probably talking.
Probably was.
Yes.
So I gotta be returned. I know they've been in here before and we didn't let them go somewhere, but we do let them go here.
So there was a lot of logging in the up above where we are. Where the people who want to go across it is. And they kind of got out into our property this past year because the logging wasn't cleaned up. It's my understanding that is being cleaned up now and the path will go back to where it was before.
But didn't we have an issue one other time and we didn't let them cross where they wanted to cross?
But that was in the pit. They wanted to cut down, so you will see it says patent McGregor or something like that. So down where the Patton line meets Patton McGregor, they wanted to take the snowmobile down all along that line to Tripoli Road because they don't like going out on 149. But we couldn't wrap our heads around that safety wise because we go in and out of there. We have stuff stored there.
All winter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And she said in the agreement that the snowmobile trail is supposed to be as good or better than when they got there, so.
And they're not gonna go through the shooting range, so we'll be good.
My question about the shooting range, if we'd be shooting snowmobilers.
All in favor of Deb entertaining the agreement? Aye.
So next up, I wanted to talk about some of our bridge projects. So at the last Board of Supervisors meeting, Michael came and talked about the lights on the bridge. And Nushana and Butch are here today. So I don't know, we want to, like, what do we want to talk about?
Well, first of all, I guess you were gonna look and see what the construction change, if there was a construction change cost, since we've already entered into the contract.
So the facts of the matter are the plans for the federal aid project were reviewed and approved by DOT. So they're expecting what is there. That included the lights, but there is no cost for a change order. I called the designer today, and if the lights are taken out, there is no cost for them to do that. But the lights are not just lights. They also have planters on them, right, Sue? Planters.
For decoration.
There's decorations. Yep, they're poles, so the pole would have planters as well. So the bid price for the light poles was $8,000 each. There are 3 of them, so the total cost for the federal aid projects is $24,000. 5% of that is a $1,200 county cost. There's different ideas. The lighting analysis was done to create uniform lighting across the deck. So there's no sidewalk on the deck. We did not want a sidewalk on the deck because then we would have to buy a snow blower and take a person out there and clear it. So there's a 4-foot wide shoulder on one side, and I believe the other shoulder is 3 feet. And that way we can plow it.
So since the design and the contract's been entered in, we've had some different things develop. Mike's group and your group really don't want lights on there, that it's bright, unnecessary. Butch is another group that they would kind of like lights on there. Salem has voted not to turn the power on to the lights to throw in the mix, and they control the switch. We've talked behind the scenes, Sue and I and some of the others, that since it's only costing the county $1,200, that maybe we should leave the lights on and have a switch there for a couple of different reasons. One, we have water rescues on the river, and that's a heavily used area. We could turn the lights on. And if there's fires, the firemen pump from that spot, so they could turn. So if the firemen had a control on the switch, or if the town wanted to turn them on for a special occasion, we could do it. Plus there's power there in case you need outlets for something there too. You know, you could do that. So up to you guys to discuss, and I don't know if I'll let you guys discuss, and then I can go to the gallery and see what their statements are.
I think, when you talk about the length of a project like this, 30+ years right now, right? The life expectancy of the Queens Bridge.
Oh, we designed them for 50 now at least.
Okay, 50 years. We're all gonna be in the pit 50 years from now. At least I know I will be. Some other folks here may age better than me. But the bottom line is opinions will change, and it'll cost more to put this back into play later on. It's easy to control now. My recommendation is stay with the engineering approval. Let the community decide if the lights are on or off. We've got the planners. There may be holiday things that could occur where you access the lights and decorate the bridge. There's all kinds of options, but if it's not there, there are no options. So that's, leave it up to the community to decide. From a county bridge perspective, we should design to meet the higher end requirement, and then if it's used, great, if not, doesn't matter.
John was half a second before me.
Okay, John.
Thank you. Is there any cost savings contracts all made if we don't do the lights?
$1,200
Is that, it would not cost us for the bridge?
for the lights. Yeah, $1,200 is what it's costing the county to put the lights on. Dana?
Darrell said about the future is gonna be lights go away everywhere. I don't think there's gonna be more lights. Fire crews come with their own light towers. Fire crews are completely self-sufficient for that reason. They would probably be faster putting their own light tower than call
Turn
Sue.
on the switch?
Then call Sue at 3 o'clock in the morning and go turn on the switch. So I don't think the switch is at the bridge.
Well, I would think it'd be at a lock switch right at the end of the bridge where they had a key and just turn the switch on.
Well,
It's a safety issue with fire.
I don't think lights are needed there. We don't have lights on other bridges unless it's a covered bridge and you can't see inside. $1,200 is $1,200. I say we remove the lights and go from there. I'd like to hear the gentleman's reason why they would like lights.
You go first,
Yes.
sure.
I'm Shauna, I'm representing the petitioners against the lights. We did take a little pause on getting signatures to get back to work a little bit this week, but we're more than happy to get more signatures if needed to just represent how much people so far don't want the lights. We had 5 or 6 hard no's and then over 150 signatures for people who don't agree with the lights. The cost of change, which we discussed with the Mr. Senator, sorry, Supervisor Skelly, it's my first civic endeavor sign. Which apparently we don't have now, like to change just $1,200. But I was taking into consideration also the future generations, you know, if we already have them on, then we can decide, and it will be a kind and logistical good thing to do just to have them on. I also offered to Supervisor Skelly to be in charge of the flowers and the planters, as long as I live out of my pocket, and I already have a deal on with Rose Garden, who offered me to be buying the plants and flowers at 50% of the cost of retail that she has in support of that. And as for the lights, I talked to the petitioners who are against it, and they agree that if it is for special occasions, they do not object to have the lights on. So as far as we're concerned, if the lights stay, it's a win-win-win for everybody, for the people who want them on, for the future generations to not have the aggravation to close the bridge again, to build them, to have them on for special occasions, and to have beautiful Victorian fixtures that I'll be embellishing throughout the season with plants. Thank you.
What you want?
You know, Butch Gilchrist, live in the town of Salem. I do not live in the Shushan Lighting District. I have spoke to a few people who signed the petition. They also do not live in the lighting district. It's my belief the only people the town board of Salem should have been interested in was what the people that were actually paying for it are. And most of the people knew nothing, whether there was going to be lights on the bridge or not. When they signed the petition, they just signed it just because somebody asked them to, and they haven't thought about it. I am upset with the Salem Town Board when it was presented to them 5 minutes later. I think it was news to just about everybody except for Sue. Sue was the person that in the beginning got the lights placed. And so when the board, 5 minutes after the issue was, they made a motion that we wouldn't hook into the Shushan Lighting District. And the rates for the lights in Shushan have reduced quite a bit in the past few years. They should go down again with the new LED lights that are being put in all street lights. So the electric bill in the future should be lower than it is currently. I like the idea of Sue putting, when they put the lights on, I hope the county will pay the $1,200 and have them there for now or in the future. And I think the idea of a timer or a switch is fine with me. I guess my question back to if the lights aren't installed, we said, turn them on like an emergency or a special occasion. Where's that power coming from? If we don't, if the town board sticks with the motion that they passed last time.
I'll deflect that to you, Sue. You guys are gonna be paying for it if they do get turned on, so you'll have to address that somehow.
I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of people in Shushan, and I actually talked to Bill at Ushak's store this morning before I came, and to the fire, the Shushan Fire Department last year had over 17 water rescue calls. Okay, so it could be really important to have those lights so that they can rescue people in an emergency. It would seem like if it was connected, you'd be able to in the emergency where, Shushan Fire Department or the Salem Town Board could use it as an emergency turn on. I mean, if it's hooked up and ready to go and it just takes a switch, I think that we would know how to do that. The other thought was the Shushan Lighting District is going to have LED lighting put in. That is going to be 3,000 and below. The lumen on the bridge, I think, is at 5,000. So in conformity, is there a way to reduce the lumen on the bridge from 5,000 to 3,000 to be in conformity with the Shushan Lighting District? The cost is going to be minimal because when they're going to LED lights, the energy has already gone down without the LED lights, and where we've done other places, it's reduced by 35 to 40%. So these lights are not going to make a difference as far as cost. I think if Nishana and Butch and Michael could come back to the town board meeting, I think that maybe we could work towards a negotiable agreement with the lights, and they would say, yes, turn them on, leave them on. I think that's an option. I wouldn't throw that out there because the town board does have the ability to reverse their decision.
So who requested the lights in the first place?
The Shushan Lighting District. Well, we had a public meeting in December of 2019, and it was discussed there and decided that there would be lights on the bridge.
There was about 100 people there, and they said, do you want lights? And kind of most of them looked at each other and said, well, yeah,
Do we
lights.
typically do that on county bridges? We offer lights?
Well, it's no cost to the county. It was the Shushan Lighting District's legacy to
I
keep the
thought it was
lights
a
on.
$1,200 cost. I heard.
Well, it is to the building.
That's to install.
But
I understand that's $1,200 cost to the county. Can we make that offer to every community we do a bridge for?
This is,
Probably in the lighting district, we do, I would think.
well, we've got lights on the trees.
I have two bridges that you guys did that the lights were on there before, they're in our lighting district, and you put them on again, and it's worked fine.
So,
So just keep in mind as you're looking at costs and whatever, because it took us a while to figure it out too. There's no meter on your lighting district. You pay by the daylight hours. So in February, your bill's high, and in July, your bill's low, and it goes up and down, whatever. And it's by how many lumens, how many lights, it's all multiplied out, and they set that rate, and it goes up and down just by daylight hours. So the difference would be if you would just have that on a switch, you probably would pay a lot higher rate when they were on, but you'd only be those specific times. So there will be a substantial difference, probably in price. I don't know how much, but just going to LED lights, we dropped almost to a third of what our lights were before that. So there is a big savings, but if you add more lights, it will cost more money, and if you have them on demand and you only use them a dozen times a year, it'll be less than running them year long. That's all.
It's just, the lights, I've seen the diagram or the drawing of the lights. I think they look nice. They're gonna be attractive. And I think it's gonna look real nice for people that do come to Shushan and go through Shushan. This county has been promoting tourism and spending quite a bit of money probably to attract people, and I think it's a good investment. I think it'll look good. Better, certainly gonna look better than the bridge that's there now.
I
So,
second that, especially the flowers, almost all year round.
you know, and it's pretty nice design on the side.
I am, we will try to take care of them.
Okay,
So I'll,
we don't pay this flower.
So the flowers growing.
I will check with the attorney, but I believe if we have no motion, things will stay and the lights will go on. Unless somebody in the committee wants to make a motion to remove the lights, and that is correct. Is that correct? John?
Do we have to do anything for switch and everything? If we go on right now, lights are on forever, we don't switch.
They're gonna have a discussion on what the lumens are gonna be before they decide that, I think, was what Sue asked.
So we have to install a switch, that's probably not.
Yeah, I mean,
Right, well,
it
Sue
would-
wanted to go back and have that discussion before they decided whether they were gonna be.
Right, and you were gonna, if they're there, you were gonna hook electricity to them anyway, so you're just gonna put a switch there. If so.
So the county's responsibility is just in the structure itself.
Right.
We don't supply the power. We supply a means to install the power, but we don't do the power.
That'll be the town's decision.
Shouldn't we put the switch at the fire department?
I think-
It's to save mostly people and.
Yeah,
especially-
that's for you guys to decide the logistics on it. We would just be putting the poles up.
But if it's part of the infrastructure of the bridge, the switch, that's county patients. Right? It's our bridge, it's our infrastructure on the bridge, the disconnect box and all that is county expense. It's just the payment of the meter would be Shushan, but I think now it's.
With the switch.
So if there's a change
Switch and
order to
electric.
it, there's a cost.
Electric car to charge.
Perhaps the town can work on that.
It's like on the bridge.
Depends on where you want to put.
Once
the
it right, once the switch is off the bridge and out of the right of way. Yeah.
So I'd suggest we just put the switch on the Jackson side.
We don't have a problem as long as we're not paying the electricity. How's that? Any more discussion on this issue?
I'd like to know the answer about where the disconnect switch, who's paying for that, because you're probably talking $2,000.
What?
Yes, I have 3 disconnects going on in the town of Hartford right now, and it's like $6,000 to run some wires and stuff. So you're not talking a light switch on the wall. It's gonna be a disconnect with fuses and a licensed electrician hooked in, so that's an addition, that's a work order change to what's going on right now, to have a disconnect switch.
Devin, in the original plans of the bridge, with the lights on and the wire down, the wire would go out to a pole, and that would be the end for the county, right? And then it would be a hookup for the town at that
For the
point.
lighting district,
Right.
wherever that. pole
Right,
goes.
so
Yes.
once it's out beyond that. Right.
I'm pretty sure from a safety perspective, to do maintenance on anything, you gotta have this local disconnect somewhere anyway.
Yeah.
It's control of that disconnect, whether it's in a locked box or whatever.
They have a little padlock thing where you put a padlock on it, you can't open the door to.
Correct.
Okay. Next, Jackson Bridge issue.
So we're looking at replacing the Batten Dugan Bridge in Battenville, and I just wanted to give you a heads up on this replacement. It was built in 1916. It's 106 years old. The cost for replacement in 1916 you guys took a, what is that, bond or something out for $3,000 for your half of the bridge. It ended up costing less than $6,000. I kind of thought that was interesting. Less than six.
And what's it cost this time?
Close to $5 million.
It's the one that Al says we're not paying for.
There's no lighting
No
district there. Jackson can't afford a lighting district.
They're gonna light candles every evening.
Candles, I don't know, it's cheaper. than
No, hey,
lights.
wait, no, the Amish are right down the road. They can come through and turn low, with kerosene like that.
Kerosene.
That'd be a good tourist.
So
Just want to give you a heads up, that's coming down the pipe.
this bridge, yeah, it's not simple. It is what it isn't. This is a single lane bridge currently. And we spent 1.4 million on it in 99 to fix it. It has a 20-ton limit and it's all yellow flagged with a possibility of red flags coming up on it.
Who built it?
And
99.
there's a large contingency in Greenwich and Jackson that want to see this bridge live forever. So we've already gotten phone calls on this. They want it repaired.
See, I was just early, that's the 23 I referred to earlier.
So is it still gonna be a one-lane bridge for $5 million?
So when you replace a bridge or do any changes to a road, you have to meet standards. And there's no standard for one lane, so you would have to justify that. The yellow flags started to be issued in 2015, so the yellow flags have been there for 7 years, so it's.
What are they for? What are the yellow flags?
The yellow flags are mostly for the gusset plate section loss. This is a fracture critical bridge, so the gusset plates play a very integral role in holding things up. The general recommendation for structurally deficient bridges is a condition rating of 4, and the superstructure on this bridge has a condition rating of 4. So.
Dana, do you have your hand up?
Right, just ask a question. How long is this bridge?
I think it's 100.
Yeah, it's gotta be 100 feet, yeah.
So this contingency wants, this contingent group that wants it just repaired, they offer to pay for the repair to keep it the way they want it, or are they gonna ask us to pay the repairs over and over again?
I'm trying to convince Deb to cut this into 2 sections because we've got 2 more bridges on this dead end road and see if we can just move it up, then it'd still be in town and keep everybody happy. But they're worried too that this is gonna turn it into a truck route. Well, there's 2 massive pain in the butt hills on this route. Trucks are not gonna take it. It is limiting some of the heavy farm equipment. Some of that, they have to go 6 miles out of their way because they can't fit across this bridge. They're too heavy and too wide for some of the farms that farm both sides of the bridge, both sides of the river.
Heavy enough and big enough when you get done to handle those, because that can wear it out in a hurry too.
Well,
They hit the other one, the cover one once in a while.
we have to build the bridge to the current standards, so the current standards are legal.
And you have to, whether in the total cost of this,
No, this is a federal aid budget.
It's gonna be federal.
Why didn't you dip it in my pocket for that?
5% of.
No, I got a front.
Right.
Well, we're just going to design this year.
Okay.
So it's gonna be probably maybe construction in 24,
Okay,
but that's ambitious.
you heard that.
In the late 80s, there was talk that I don't know if anybody were you there then at that point, Dave? Or anybody they had a huge fight there. They were gonna replace it then in the county, and then it got just rebuilt and beefed up. So I was at the 100-year ceremony. Nice thing. It's great that it lasted 100 years, but we're on a county road and it's limiting some of the traffic from over a county road. So
Yeah, you don't want to go like the throughway bridge, kids.
You can still design it to look
of that era. I mean,
Yeah,
it-
yes.
Can be the Alabama Memorial Bridge.
When we do a bridge design project, we do the alternatives, so if we will have cost for that and for a bridge similar to the Shushan Bridge with girders instead of truss.
No lights.
No lights.
No plans.
I hear you loud and clear.
Just giving you this background information because instead of 2 people showing up when we get to the final crew, there
It would
may
be 102.
well, there could be 20 very easily anyways.
Maybe the IDA has a used Bailey's fridge.
It's not long.
Nice
Yeah,
segue.
already wants that.
So that's the next discussion.
I do want that.
You're gonna wait on.
So, so we put in for our bridge, we put our program into the AGFTC and Dave put in his bridge for the IDA. Did you want to talk about it or?
Sure. As we took over the bridge, it became federal aid eligible. So we're eligible to apply for federal aid under the TIP. We've been working with AFGTC, Aaron Frankville over there to do that. He had some concerns about paperwork needed to do the work for the bridge. During the design, Beth can explain it better than I can. So that was one of his concerns. And when we started talking about it, Beth came up with an idea, which talks about maybe bridge. And I'll let her explain the reasons why and what she's doing. Her proposal is that if we look at replacing the bridge, which the IDA is responsible for paying any amount for it in the program design, making sure we can find the money to do it. We are looking at a proposal with Deb has is she would like to take the Navy Bridge, and for that she would also do the paperwork for it and sponsor the bridge, because in sponsoring the bridge, then the project becomes eligible for Monticelli funds. So that was sort of the design. That's sort of what we're looking at. To do that, we want to replace the bridge. It's important to replace the bridge. Deb has use for it, and I will let her explain that to you. This is a 2-part conversation. It's a benefit for everyone here in terms of what Deb's proposing. So she reached out to us with that about that proposal. So I'll let Deb take it over.
So we have some headache bridges in the county, and one of them is in Whitehall over Gray Lane. And if we were to get this maybe bridge, we would like to use that as a bridge up on that project. So, or up on that road. So that road has very low traffic. Are there 2 people that live up there, John?
Yes.
And the replacement cost for that bridge is $4.5 million. So this would be a lot less than that. We would have to evaluate the bridge. I talked to Acro, which now owns Maybe, last week when I was at the conference, and they said that they could look at it, but they saw no problem with doing that. And it would be a long-term fix for that project.
Be a lot shorter at that point.
Yeah. Yep.
What does it mean if the county sponsors the construction of the new bridge for Monticelli? Is the county responsible for that bridge at all in the future? It's not going to be, because that bridge will be a private bridge.
So the federal aid process is very complicated, and anybody who's done a project in the town with the federal aid process knows that there's a lot of paperwork. So and Aaron knows that as well. So he doesn't want somebody who isn't familiar with the federal aid process to do a project. It can go bad very quickly. So we would be the lead agency for the project. I don't know if we have to front the money. Do we have to front the money?
You're asking my question for me, so.
So I don't know if we have to front the money.
If you did, we'd have to pay, the idea would have to pay interest, just like the sewer district.
I don't know that I can do that.
Really? The sewer district and the IDA looked at that separately.
Sewer district is Park County agents.
So the IDA,
No, they're their own authority.
just an authority, not an agency, we're not an agency. So we've already talked to banks about grants and funding for grants, again, grants money. They're comfortable once we have a funding project like this, where we know we're getting grant money back, it's just gonna be a matter of time and interest, is they're comfortable with advancing the money to do grant projects. So what we look at is that what we sort of talked about in part of this was that we would, first of all, the bridge had last inspection back in February March last year. April.
Was it last year?
It was last year we took it over.
Or was that
It was
21?
it was part of federal, that was 21, part of federal, for taking over, the state had to do an inspection on the bridge within 90 days, taking over. And it's not a private road, it's actually a public road, that's part of the agreement, getting on for the project, so. Part of that road is a public road, part is a quasi-public road. Two different parts, one in Kingsbury, one in Fort Everett. So, lost my train of thought. So what Deb's proposing would establish a value for the bridge, which is part of the discussion. We got to have ARCO where we're doing that to figure out what that does to sort of the swap process, and to reimburse the county for the sponsorship and for the work that Deb would be doing in terms of that. And if there's any match, the market selling fund, we look at that type of money to do the exchange and make it equal on both parts. It looks like a big win for Whitehall, a big win for getting a bridge up there in a lot shorter period of time than currently. So that's what Deb's proposal was. Yes.
There are so many pitfalls with this whole project, and Dave, when you said that this road is a public road, I'm like, no, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, I think you have the entrance, which is what, Newton Lane in Kingsbury, but that whole narrow parcel, and I won't even call it a road. You say public road, public means government. Local government, town, county, city.
We are a public agency.
Okay, but
Authority.
Public authority.
authority, so
Difference, big difference.
when you say it's a public road, who's maintaining that public road? The taxpayer or the IDA?
Right now, the IDA is responsible for.
What about in the future? If the county builds a bridge?
Depends on the fact if Kingsbury and whatever take over the road.
If, they said no many times. Kingsbury says,
If. I didn't say they were gonna do it, I said, yeah. Becomes a public road. And then the county gets bridge, but it's a brand new bridge.
and the county gets to maintain that whole road and plow it and salt it and pave it?
No, wait a minute. That would be the town responsibility who owns the road.
Well, I've even read resolution from the Kingsbury Town Board that they are not taking over their section of that road. So you're building bridges and borrowing money and doing everything on a lot of ifs. And this is where I get very nervous with the way the IDA does things. A lot of it is secret, only in your head, and people don't really know what they're getting into. If the county can help with this bridge and the county does not own the bridge, responsible for any maintenance of the bridge, nothing, I'm okay. But if you're going to parlay this to where it then becomes a county-owned bridge and maintained, and if a public road comes through, I'm completely against it.
Yeah. Is the question, if the idea is just forward what they're doing, that they give the bridge to Deb? That's the question? Is that the first question today?
Pretty much.
You want it, you want to get rid of it. You say it works for you, it helps all kinds of people. What's the problem in we all singing kumbaya about that? We all agree it's a good idea.
What string is attached to that?
That's step two, but I just want to make sure, no sense doing a step two if we don't have step one in place.
So the AGFTC is reviewing the plan right now, and it would change our plan so that we could, it wouldn't cost as much to
Right.
replace the Whitehall Bridge. So
Right.
yes,
Okay.
that is step one.
So is there a motion today? Is there a movement today, or is there, you looking for a consensus from the board that?
Well, wait for go around, then we'll
Okay.
go.
I'm just trying to find the path here.
Okay. You're gonna build a new bridge. The county is gonna take the old bridge and move it to Whitehall,
Yes.
Yes.
just so I know what's going on. First, I heard.
Does Town of Kingsbury have any comments?
Wow, I'd have to go back to my notes, but we had talked about this a long time ago. One of the things we did say, prior to all the nonsense that went down below on the south end, I remember was there an approval to somebody to purchase that property in front of the wharf? There was a plan in place for a private company to own a segment in front of the wharf bridge?
There is.
Okay, prior to that, we had said, yeah, we'll take as long as the bridge is replaced, it's a town road, we'll take it. But after that, I think our board felt like we were taking very good care of a private company at that point, making a really nice driveway for them, who had the ability to restrict other industry from using that wharf. Am I correct?
Mhm.
Yeah. I personally don't think I'd be in favor of it at this time, but I'm one of four. I'm not confident the other four would agree to that either.
So I want to make sure the idea had nothing to do with that. That was all.
You were involved. You were intricately involved, Dave, because I watched the meetings. You guys were involved. So you could say you weren't involved, but you guys were, based on what I watched. But I'm going back. We're going back 3 years now.
We were aware of it, that's for sure. We were aware of it, because we certainly weren't happy about it. But yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear a lot of people upset about it at the idea. I thought it was kind of like, okay, that has to be done.
No, there's still.
But the wharf is blocked, am I correct? If all those transactions go through?
Did they ever exercise the option?
Yeah, they have not, they can't exercise the option.
Until the property sold down there, they can't exercise the option.
So it's actually-
Am I correct? So with that still in play,
That's still.
that should be really publicized really well before we do anything, because it feels to me like we're creating a nice road for a private company, which is troubling.
But you're also providing a road to a facility that will not be controlled by private company. Only the entrance to the wharf may be controlled by a private company.
Okay,
Not
that's
the
a
rest
pretty
of
big
the-
asset down there.
Well, except they won't give it up yet either.
And they won't. So I know, we've been told through the years, so many things. I think Dana makes a good point. We've been told so many things through the years. I actually don't know what's true and what's not anymore. I was in here one day when I think it was Michael Connor said, I have an agreement in hand to, remember? And then he got asked afterward, can I see that? Oh, no, it's not done yet. It's like, it's all been really troubling. All this stuff that's going down. It does seem like hasn't been transparent through the years. So I guess that's where Kingsbury's position is this time, Jay. I don't know.
Thank you. Well, thank you for the input. You're one of the key players in that, so.
Yeah.
John,
County owns the bridge. Can't drive fire in there across it. What's gonna happen if property on the other side of this bridge starts fire? Whose responsibility is
the
it?
Whitehall Bridge or the IDA Bridge?
Well,
I mean, currently you can't, right? So you need the bridge up there, right? You're in the same situation we are.
I guess what I'm saying is whose responsibility does it fall on if something happens to these two houses?
I don't know. I mean, I know that we need to replace that bridge or shore it up or do something as soon as we possibly can. And this was the idea of.
I guess, is the county responsible if these houses burn there because fire engine can't get across them?
County's responsible for the bridge.
The lawyer shaking his head yes. He didn't make a noise, but he's shaking his head.
All I
yes.
know is that houses there are top of the line, and if something happens, it could cost a lot more than $1 million.
Okay, Matt, and I'll get you.
So I'm back at 30,000 feet. So question one is, if that becomes available, whatever the IDA does, Deb would like it. Is this board okay with giving it to her? That's question one. And then question two is if the IDA gets the funding and builds a brand new bridge down there, which is great. My question is, does that become the county's responsibility eventually? Not whether they fund it, who pays for it. Say the IDA builds a beautiful bridge down there. Does that eventually become our bridge?
It's my understanding that if we make a resolution to adopt that, so, Roger and I went through the law book. Did he talk to you about that at all? And in the law book, it talks about how, and we looked up the resolution. Thank goodness we have Dick Doyle, who has worked for us for a very long time, and he knew right what that resolution was. And I believe it was in the 80s. But anyway, there's a resolution that the county made taking over all bridges in towns that were over a certain amount of feet. I think it's 20. And then I sent an email out to the listserv, which is the other highway superintendents across the state, and anyone who owns an IDA bridge had to adopt another resolution for that specifically. I did order new law books because the ones that I looked through we only have 2. The new ones are 4, and they just came in the other day to see if anything has changed in it, and I haven't done that yet.
Sue.
Is the bridge into the Whitehall houses the only access to those houses?
Yes.
Well, wait a minute, there's a fire at that house and the firemen head that way and the 911 says where they gotta go. They're gonna stop at the bridge and say we can't go across it?
Yes.
They would?
That's,
Why? Is it flagged now? Is there signs that say you can't go across there right now?
It's posted.
It's posted for what?
5 tons, 20 tons, 5 tons. I think that's when it went down to 5 tons.
Isn't a state of emergency isn't all that open with though? Look at how
My firemen would go across the bridge. They're going.
ours was too, but I'm thinking, well, I'm just thinking of like our county highway patrol, we're loading sand and salt.
They might go.
Way
I
over.
mean, we had the same situation, Matt, and our guy said we aren't supposed to. We
They're gonna wind up
probably
with-
will, but we're supposed to.
I wouldn't believe where we put our trash. So.
Yep.
The idea is not asking the county to take over the bridge. The idea took the responsibility of that road and the bridge. We're not disputing that. We're not asking anything about that. If at some point in the future, some town or county wants to take over the road, yes, we'd like that to happen, but we're not asking for that. We're simply asking for something that would help both the IDA and Whitehall solve an issue. I want to be perfectly clear about that.
I'm okay with step 1, and I'm okay with step 2. If in the very small print at the bottom, the county does not end up responsible for this bridge into the future. Now, the future, something can change, but right now, we build it. I don't want the county now saying, oh, we must maintain this bridge. We have to do everything else. I'm completely against it. And Deb, that thing about bridges over 20 feet on town roads, it has nothing to do with a private bridge. If you have a private bridge that's 50 feet long, the county is not responsible at all for a private bridge. And I'm okay with this if that bridge stays private. If some deal where we get the Bailey Bridge and we help IDA through sponsorship and pass through money, I'm okay, as long as it doesn't cost the county money and the county is not responsible for that bridge once it's built.
Yeah, just to clarify, because I appreciate what Dave's saying, that we're not asking, but by default, do we own it? I think that's the thing I would like to have legally clarified.
That's where I was trying to get to. Thank you.
So that's what I want to look in. So in the law books in the beginning, it defines the IDA, but when it talks about transferring the bridges to the towns, it specifically says towns and village roads. It does not say IDA roads. And that's why I sent the question out to the state to see what the past practice is for other counties. And they have all had to pass a resolution to take over and 2 of them have done that.
What town is
That
it?
respond.
Kingsbury. I agree with Dana, but if by some chance Kingsbury does decide to take over the road, then the county will own it anyways by default. Right. That's only if Kingsbury decides it.
Or the county.
Or the county.
Just a clarifying question for step 1. Thank you for doing that. Is the IDA given the bridge to the town, to the county or the town of Whitehall? How are we doing it? Because if step one is get a bridge to Whitehall, and IDA doesn't want that bridge anymore.
Well, Whitehall doesn't own the bridge now, the county owns the bridge in Whitehall. So
Okay.
it would be the DPW or the county's Bailey Bridge. And if ever that road gets replaced in the future, or ever that bridge gets replaced in the future, we would have another temporary bridge that we could use for other things.
Right, because it's 100 feet.
Yeah, it's a longer bridge.
You only need X amount.
Yep.
So do we need to take action for the IDA to transfer ownership of that bridge? Not on site, but once you remove it. How does it?
Is this a one motion? I'm assuming one motion is that we be, what do you call it, lead agency for the IDA to go for the Marshall. And then how do we tie in the maybe bridge? Is that a separate resolution?
Separate. But I think first we have to, first, the agreement that we then propose is we establish a value for that bridge. Use that value for compensation for the county's work.
Or it's just a trade-off, even if you don't have a standard value. That might be better.
Well, that can be established by whatever
Are
company.
we at an official resolution stage, or are we at a conceptual
I
consensus?
think we're the official
We like the
resolution.
idea, let's move forward with it, let's get the details.
But I think we gotta be very
We're not
careful
gonna
on
act
how
on
we
something
word it.
there, are we?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out if we're gonna resolve it
Because
today or we just.
You guys gotta get the application
Right.
We
rolling,
gotta
right?
change,
It's still gotta go to the full board, right?
the resolution.
So that's why you gotta act today,
On what?
in order for her to be the lead.
No,
agency.
on what? What's the action today?
Lead agency for.
Lead agency for.
In order to-
That's that
right,
one, right?
that's what has to get to the full board.
Because the money part of it does not take place to get the value and not the value and everything else. So that'd be a second resolution on the road someplace. The first is be the sponsor so we can get the correct application.
But I'm not gonna change the AGFTC submission for the Whitehall Bridge until I know we're gonna have the Bailey Bridge, because that would be irresponsible of me.
What's
Should
the
that be an
time?
MOU, just an MOU, that you do the work for the bridge, and forget the value? I think that's just a memorandum of understanding, that we're doing this because we're getting this, that's all. That would be my idea.
So we frame again as one resolution and with the understanding that the other bridge. How we doing that?
Still two resolutions.
Still two resolutions, okay.
So a little bit of the details though, because I still need to know how the money's flowing, who's fronting the money, how the pass through. Like there's still, you could agree to be lead agency, but I need to know what that means. Right? I mean, I need to know we front the money, we front the 5%, there's still questions.
I don't think you can fund I don't think you can front the money.
I don't think I can either, that's why I'm asking.
Proposal was, there's a couple of thought processes here. Is, do we establish a value for the bridge? And for that, Deb establishes the time that she needs to, what dollar amount of her time and the county's work's gonna be doing to be the sponsor agency and do the reporting. And should part of the value bridge go against that 5%?
But I see that as a separate resolution. I see the lead agency being a one decision point first.
Correct, that's one decision point.
Right.
The IDA has already got some grant funding covered. We also have a commitment from a bank that says if we have a grant and we don't get it reimbursed, they will do, we can't do bands like county can. There was a misunderstanding.
Yeah, some kind of commercial loan.
Commercial loan property, so the commercial loan, so we have that done. We have a commitment to in grant format reimbursement for reimbursement, they will fund the money until we get reimbursed.
So Dan, it feels like it's lead agency with an authorization for the chairman to sign any related agreements to execute that lead agency
Yes.
Because there will be some MOUs with the IDA to make the flow of things happen too.
Yes.
So part of the lead agency resolution is also an some agreement. The chairman side, I think. Right, it's part of that lead agency resolution. Because there'll have to be some agreement with the IDA on how that will
Right.
flow. Right, separate from the bridge discussion, there's the actual funding.
So my recommendation is we do that first piece that's required to kick this off, to have a formal, to your point, somebody needs to sit down and really formally map this thing out, lead agency piece for the first, you know,
So are you making the motion that we be lead agency?
if we're okay stepping off the curb and moving down this path, just to explore. And there's no liability.
How can you make a resolution be lead agency when we don't even know the details of that?
You'd have to have the details
Like buying a pig in a poke.
Yeah.
Right, this goes to the full board.
You'd have to have the full details. Well, probably would go back, it'd probably still go finance. I don't know.
Do you want me to get details on lead agency?
We should have all the details by finance, should go to finance first. Yeah, so all the details are in by a committee before those go
Yeah,
forward.
there's a lot of questions
Right,
to
that should be all.
this process that aren't with this committee. Conceptually,
The
is
committee,
it worth exploring a replacement bridge for Whitehall?
so conceptual would go to finance would have, we should have all that in one when it's presented at finance.
Can you?
I think we can, I think we got time enough, don't we have?
I won't be there, so have fun with that.
Ah,
Oh, perfect,
I'll be in Syracuse.
well,
There's never a better time.
You're right there.
No, I'll literally be in training. I won't be zoomable. So.
It's like me, that's when it falls through Becky.
If we became lead agency, we can write the stipulations of what we will do, not say we will do what the IDA wants us to do. We can say, these are our conditions, accept it or not. My question about Marchicelli. If we get involved in Marchicelli and then after the bridge is built, then it's still private ownership, is someone gonna say, Marchicelli funds aren't available for private people? Are we now have a problem because we did something in Marchicelli and now a private person benefits and owns that?
Not a private person. We're not a private person. Part of the agreement with the state to take and put in inventory was that the IDA would make that a public road.
How can you make it a public road if the people on the other, if the people that won't take it?
Why don't you call the DOT and talk to and find out that answer? That was their specification, not ours.
How can you make a public road if Kingsbury says we won't take it?
Because they don't lock the gate up and say, no one can go down through here.
So by default, you will force Kingsbury to take a road.
No, we're not forcing anyone to take a road.
who owns it?
We're not forcing anyone to take the
Dan
road.
doesn't want it, he doesn't own it, who owns it now? Who owns it now?
IDA,
The road.
road and the bridge.
IDA. But the deal to get the new bridge was that road would become public. Well, there's another party involved in that, sitting right there.
How is he involved in that? He doesn't own the bridge or the road.
How can you make that road public?
New York State Thruway Authority is an authority and it's a public road.
So so that would be a public road maintained by the IDA, not a town municipality.
Correct.
You want, wait 5 years, see what the answer is. You want to divest yourself from that bridge and road ultimately in the future. And that's where this road eventually ends up. And I'm like, no, 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 no. If you say no now, you don't have to say no in the future.
Maybe to appease Dana's concerns, could we, as part of what moving forward with this, we get a legal statement, written documentation that states it's a privately owned road, quasi-public, whatever we want to call it. My understanding, like, who provides police force down there right now?
Sheriff's Department.
They do.
Police, anybody else call?
That was under the impression they don't provide coverage there because it's,
According to the sheriff, they do.
okay, you got that in writing from Jeff?
I know the residents, when I talked to him about it.
Spoke to him about it, okay, because I was having a different conversation with him. Because I know when the kids were getting hurt, the kid got hit, a motorcycle crash down there, didn't he?
I've asked public safety if they had any record of that, and they couldn't find it. I'm not saying it didn't happen.
So
They couldn't find record.
So that's why I'm curious, like, is that road, because they obviously looked at it as a driveway. That's kind of the way I looked at it. So if somebody was racing up and down, and the gate doesn't get locked anymore, am I correct in saying that?
It's locked after 4 o'clock.
Why would a public road be locked up? See, that's a strange thing that when you call it a public road and I see a gate locked at 4 o'clock, that to me is not a public road. That's a private road. We got a lot of questions about all the stuff.
So is there a rush on this? Because Al's not gonna be there. Does it have to be done in May? Can we wait till June on this? Or is there a timetable and a deadline we need to move on this?
I think the marsh facility part of this.
I'll talk to Aaron, because I think we're gonna discuss our program at the meeting, well, that could be next Wednesday, actually, so. If we wanted to make changes, it's not unheard of to make changes later after, and we could bring those up when we talk about it with the other counties that are involved in the AGFTC.
Do we miss something? Do we wait till June to do this?
No, we just might have to change something at AGFTC.
Okay.
I'll ask him if we can do that.
Dave, who locks that gate at night? Who's a key holder?
Get up more.
Canal Corp's the only one that has a key to that structure, that facility?
Well, there's the farmers have a key to it.
So there's farmers, who else?
I got
Canal Corp?
keys. Canal Corp got keys. SMS Rail has keys.
Who does?
SMS Rail.
The green company must have a key.
Who owns that?
No, that's SMS Rail. Who owns SMS Rail?
Yeah,
SMS Rail.
good response, but who are the principal ownership for that? Is it a public corporation or
it's
a private corporation?
I'm not sure they're public or private.
Okay. Who else? There's a lot of key holders to a public road. Again, if you go down County Route 41, we don't have a gate. It's an open road. It's a county road. It's not a gate to get close. So that's why I describe it as a public road. It just seems like we're taking care of a lot of public and private entities with this work that we're doing.
So it's kind of like our tower on Presbytery, that's, the land's owned by the county, the tower's owned by Tower Corp or whatever. And there's about 5 houses. And there's probably 20 locks on that thing, different ways to get in.
So I guess I would ask for a motion and concept that we do the lead agency to move to finance. Hopefully we'll have some more information at that point.
Why do we have to do that? Couldn't it go to finance without a motion? Couldn't that, Brian put it on his agenda?
No, it shouldn't go, it really. Any other time.
If this committee doesn't want.
Right, any other time I should take anything, you bitched about it, and now you want me to take something there, it can't be both ways, it's gotta be one way or the other.
No, it doesn't. There's always be both ways. That's why you-
Thank you,
that's why you-
I appreciate that.
That's why you use judgment. That's why we have a brain.
Tim has made a motion and Daryl seconded it.
For what?
Move it to finance.
What are we moving?
Not recommending a lead agency or anything, just move it.
But, well, yes, the concept that they're gonna be the lead agency.
The
With
Washington County
more
will be.
details going to finance.
A binding resolution anyway, so why not?
Right. Kicking the can over the fence.
I could ask for more discussion, but I'm not sure.
This is gonna be a Skelly meeting instead of a family meeting.
I'm still under the time. We got a vote though.
In your mind.
All in favor of moving it to finance as a conceptual lead agency with more information to come?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
I think there's so many problems with this that we don't even know.
Finance will probably kick it back to us.
Well, we can't answer the questions today here. So.
Well, just don't forget that I have a responsibility to the bridge and Whitehall.
Right.
It's not getting any better.
That's the reason why I wanted to do something today, was so that
We could start to.
figure out the solution to the bridge.
I think if Whitehall Bridge not involved, this would be a solid, no way.
Probably so.
Okay, are we done with the bridge?
I have another
Did we
bridge.
bridge?
I have another bridge.
Oh, you have another one? I didn't.
Yeah, this one's down on County Route 74. So, I had to put one down, you may or may not know that Last year, we had to put one bridge down on County Route 74, right outside of the village of Greenwich in the town of Easton, down to Moon Lane because we had a red flag. And we're supposed to replace that this summer. Excuse me, but, and we're still replacing it, but we're gonna have to replace it sooner because the other side of the bridge just got a red flag. So, just an FYI.
So 74 votes.
That one is in our county. We're already doing it this year.
It's in our budget.
It's in our budget. Yep. So
With the materials that you already bought that are cheaper than.
we were
out there.
planning on replacing it this summer,
But is county road closed?
Is it?
half of it.
So you're still operating at one lane even though it's red flag?
We have 6 weeks. There's two different kinds of red flags. One is a PIA, which you have to fix in 24 hours, and one's 6 weeks. This one's 6 weeks. So it's closing next week. Because there's a bicycle race this week and we can't close it this week because it's hard for the.
Wait, so we'll take a bicycle, so don't take a car.
Now, wait a minute.
What flag is that?
The Sarah Bridge was $7 million there for bicycles, so Brian.
Wait till they put electric cars up.
So a couple other things, the annual report and the MS4 report are online on our website. We got our CHIPS letter. So we wanted to make a budget amendment for the actual CHIPS letter. So in the budgeted amount for CHIPS that we were hoping to get was $3,420,712. The actual is $3,735,857. Plus, we have a rollover last year of $315,146.
I feel good news, bad news.
You what?
No, that's all good news. All good news. And then,
No, it's all good.
how about the other two lines?
Well, two or pop, just one pop, that pave our pop.
No, you have Paving New York also, and you have Powell.
No, I'm just, all of this,
That's all combined?
Yep.
Yes,
Number?
that's a combined.
So, but all three will have to be listed separately, right? Because they're not budgeted
no,
separately.
they're not budgeted separately. Well, they were this year. So there's CHIPS, PAVE, and extreme winter recovery. And now we have a bonus program called POP, and the, for that, we got $442,905.81.
So that's not in there.
It's not in the letter, so I can't do a budget amendment until I get a letter.
Not yet.
Motion to move the finance budget amendment.
Second.
Aye. Okay.
So
Just
when you're all said and done, there's gonna be about $4.5 million available this year with rollover and pop.
Right.
Yes. All in favor?
It's all good news.
Aye. Opposed? Anything more to do?
You can have a mile.
So how much more minutes do I have to get the record from Cassie?
Another 40 minutes.
40?
40.
No, she can keep it.
Don't try to make government out from last one.
So I was just gonna show the paving projects for this year. We updated them with the actual budget numbers.
Yep.
It's the same list that was presented at the budget meeting. And it looks like hopefully we'll have enough money to do all of that.
See, I told you, good news, bad news, the price went up.
Yes.
But you got enough money to cover it. So you did good.
Good news, bad news. Right?
Big donut hole,
Hartford there.
just like last year.
So when we do our plan, we don't go by towns to see if we can fix in any certain towns. It's kind of like the bridges, the worst ones get done first, but we're trying the pavement preservation too, so. Okay, so there's the,
So I shouldn't feel deflated that Hebron is not it.
we just finished, Hebron, didn't we?
Probably. But then, I know it's not how it works, but I know that you hear it sometimes.
You got internet this year. What do you want?
Yes, we don't have to drive anymore. We can sit home and make it happen.
Any questions on the paving?
Slick.
Any extra there?
No, I don't think so.
You have a question.
I have other, we have other yet?
Where's other?
Okay, my highway supervisor in Hartford would like to do a driveway permit program where if you're gonna put a driveway on a town road, you have to have a permit, and he gets involved in everything else. So in order to do that, I found out that all he did was copy Washington County's work permit, and I got this form from Deb, and just put the town of Hartford letterhead on top instead of the county. When I first saw his form, I said, oh my gosh, there's a whole bunch of regulations, and all these regulations say shall, you shall do this, you can't do that. Anytime there's a shall, means you can enforce it. So I asked Roger, how can we have a permit that says shall, or we might enforce it if somebody doesn't do it without a local law, like on the town? And so Roger told me that the highway superintendent has plenary authority within the right of way. So I had to look up plenary, and it basically means you have overall authority on your domain already. So I have questions, but I don't know when this work permit came out, but one of the things that kind of bothers me as far as, you know, individual private rights, things like that, is it says that the permittee hereby certifies that all persons concerned with the actual work under this permit are duly covered by workman's compensation insurance. Why do we tell somebody that their workers have to be covered by workman's comp? I think that's a big stretch, because the county may not even own the road. It might be a road by use. You know, my property, I give a right of way to the fire company so they can access my pond for fire. That giving them the right of way does not now enable them to tell me what I can do on my property. And I see that this, by making that any workers must be covered by workman's compensation, is you're telling that landowner what he must do. I have a problem with that. I talked to our town attorney. All attorneys, you are very risk averse. Oh no, you have to keep that language. In case somebody gets hit by a car on the road, want to make sure that person has workman's comp. And guess what? If they don't, they're going to sue the county anyway.
Wait, I'm confused then. You hired John Roselle to put the driveway, doesn't he have to fight for workman's compensation?
Yeah.
It's
Right.
It's the.
Yes, but why are we telling John Roselle he must have workman's
Because
compensation?
if one of the guys gets hurt and there's no compensation.
Why do we care?
Because then they'll come back and sue you.
They're gonna sue you anyway.
But they're gonna win if they don't have a job.
Who can I sue?
It's the same
I
thing
just
with
think
that when it's already there with.
my neighbor and I are a handyman are working on my driveway entrance, driving it. I have to abide by a county rule as to who works on my driveway. I just think that's a huge big brother stretch. And I'm also wondering, is there another form, Deb, that goes with this? Because on my town one, which again, we just copied that, there's a whole attachment about highway right of way and drainage ditches. You can't have your sump pump go into the drainage ditch and stuff. Do you have that second page on yours as well?
Not on the internet. I didn't see it on the internet, but like when, on that first page of that other one, does it talk about, is that the first page of the one you held it in originally that has all the shells on it? Is that the permit that's from our website as well?
This is, yes, you provided me a
Because
link
it
to the
talks
website.
about, yeah, so it talks about when it's a driveway permit, how they buy the pipe and we put it in for them so that it's installed properly.
Right.
And then we put those notes in the bottom of that sheet that you're holding now that has all the shells on it.
Right.
But that also is the permit for like NYSEG and NIMO and all of those kinds of people.
It's for other things. It's like to move a
Yes.
building, to set a pole. I'm concerned about the driveway aspect because that's probably gonna be on private property. So I also asked my town attorney, I said, what if a farmer wants to put in a barway to go in to a hay field and stuff? Does he have to go to the county and get this permit for entryway to the field? And the answer is no, because you can't regulate ag at all.
Well,
Ag is allowed to go on, access their field, so an ag person would refuse to fill this out, but there's no note here that says agriculture is accepted. I just, when I see a whole bunch of shalls, I then think, if If the county wanted to, the county could say no. Correct? What if there's not good sight distance, but that's the only place you can put it, because on either side is a swamp? The county could say no. And that person now cannot put in the driveway because it has all these shalls. You have the ability to say no.
You should have the ability to say no, bringing the driveway in a county road.
But it's your land. And chances are you probably own to the center line of that road because it's probably road by use.
There are owners that want to put it in crazy, stupid places that we tell them, no, you gotta put it over here, because this is a wetland, or this is too, no, there should be designations there, but you want to regulate it from the town standpoint, man?
I don't.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to do this at all.
Oh, I thought you wanted Greg to do this.
No, but when I see the example, the county example, I'm like, if I don't want to do this at the town, why can the county have the ability to say no to a person or dictate what workers that person hires to use on the road? I just see this as a huge government overreach, which we didn't even have this thing for. You know, set a pole, move a building across the highway, I get it, but when it comes to driveways on residential property.
Well, what if I build a driveway and don't use a culvert? I just pile dirt in there and block up your drainage ditch.
If you're on top of a mountain, I don't think you should have a culvert, but if you're on top of the mountain, guess what? They're gonna make you put a culvert
And if you're down on the flat ground, the Route 40, where you should have a culvert in, you don't put it in, what then? You block up the drainage ditch and stop the.
in. But if I want to put an entrance for my driveway out to the county road, so be it.
I don't think so.
It's, when you're connecting to a county road, the county has to say how you're connected.
Everybody's got curb cut. I think you're probably the only.
But I don't know if they can deny you access to a county road if you have road frontage on it.
If you don't connect properly.
Well,
I don't know, so like Matt said, that you say no, I think they make sure it's constructed so that it doesn't cause problems down the road.
State's got
You can make it perfect for you, and then your neighbor gets flooded. Nobody wants to open up that anymore.
Or wash the road out or something like that.
I think a lot of these are shoulds. When I see shall, then the next question is, you can't say shall unless you're gonna. And has the county, Jeff, to your knowledge, ever denied a person to put in a driveway entrance?
They had to move. I know White Hall and county roads, they had to be moved.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's.
You can't just put it where you want it. They have to take everything into consideration, the same way the
Your
town.
site view, all that, corners, got the whole thing.
Right.
But
But
I do know they've had to be rearranged.
The engineers always go out and look at them before they get signed to make sure they meet certain criteria.
But I could see a situation where somebody doesn't have a good place at all to put a road. The only place you can put the road is very bad sight distance. Are you gonna say you've got to put a Bailey bridge across that swamp to get to the better spot? I think just it worries me that the county is in a position to tell somebody, no, he may have a very good reason why to put it there. And the town, same thing. I don't want this. This will probably be adopted in the town because it doesn't even have to go for resolution because you have plenary authority. You can do it anyway without permission of the board. Yes, and the county highways. So I asked Roger, is there ever a resolution or local law that we adopted this? And he said, no.
There's 4 books of rules I have to follow, so, and that one is in there, something, I forget what number it is.
We've always had it.
John, your situation was the road moved to where it could be done, or was it a huge engineering feat to move it to that location?
It was not huge engineering, you know, they just had to move it 70, 80 yards.
No, but that's a cooperation thing, but when the cooperation breaks down, you have the ability to say, the county highway superintendent, the town highway superintendent, has the ability to say no.
This was on county road. I know they made a person move, and that was working together with each other, not just.
My worry is not when this does work well, my problem is when this does not work well. It's a shaft. And I don't agree. That's all I have to say.
Is there any other?
Are we still going to the record or what's going on?
No, I think we're close. Meeting adjourned.
I still think we're going downhill the record.
It's 30 minutes to go.
Yeah, sure.
Coffee is a lot more.